Section 1. Hey guys, tonight we're opening a door most historians would rather keep locked. The stones beneath your feet are cold, and the walls seem to breathe with memories that were never meant to be disturbed. You kneel before an altar inside a forgotten medieval church. Dust dances in the dim candlelight, but something else is here. Something older than scripture and heavier than time. You notice a loose tile beneath the altar, worn smooth as if someone had touched it many, many times. Beneath it, a scroll, sealed in wax, bound in hair. Human hair. You break it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is over there. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The wax crumbles with an almost reluctant sigh. You unroll the brittle parchment with trembling fingers. It's written in Latin, well, mostly. Some of the words look like Latin's evil twin. The script curls and twists, the ink darker than any iron gall should be. It shimmers like it's still wet. The first line makes your blood cool. To the thief of sacred breath, may your bones be restless and your soul devoured by silence. This is no prayer. This is a curse. And the worst part, it's not even the only one. The parchment is thick and leathery. The writing curves in a way that makes your eyes ache. The room seems quieter now. Too quiet, as if sound itself is holding its breath. As you read further, it becomes obvious that this wasn't just a curse written in anger. It was ritual, formulaic, a precise structure meant to invoke something, not just retribution, but permanence. Historians still argue whether medieval curses like these were genuine beliefs, symbolic acts, or simply tools of fear and control. But what unsettles them most is how frequently these scrolls show up in hidden places, beneath altars, inside tombs, behind false walls, always wrapped in secrecy, always sealed with materials that were frankly not supposed to be there. Human hair, dried blood, teeth. In 1296, in the hills of central Italy, a team of masons repairing a collapsed church wall discovered a niche behind the bricks. Inside, a jar. Inside the jar, a scroll just like this. The mason who opened it laughed, brushed it off as medieval nonsense. And that same week, he fell into a quarry, broke every bone in his body. According to a local monk's diary, when his body was pulled up, his mouth was stuffed with dirt and his eyes had turned a milky gray. The other workers refused to continue the project. The church was abandoned. You start to notice something odd about the scroll in your hand. The ink on the last line, still damp. You haven't dripped any water, but the bottom edge of the parchment is slightly wet. And your hands, your fingertips, now have a dark stain. A slick residue that doesn't smell like ink at all. You wipe it on your shirt. It leaves no mark, but your skin still tingles. Maybe you shouldn't have opened it. But that's hindsight, right? You wonder who put it here. A priest? A monk? A heretic trying to trap something or set it free? Some speculate that during the 12th and 13th centuries, renegade sects, groups the church labeled heretical, hid curses like this in sacred spaces as a form of sabotage. Others believe these were placed by the clergy themselves, trying to bind evil to a place, keeping it trapped in stone. There's even an open debate among medieval scholars about whether curses were designed to infect a location or a person. One school of thought argues that curses were meant to sink into the bones of buildings, like radioactive fallout in stone, leaving behind echoes that persist even after centuries. Others suggest that once read aloud or disturbed, the curse becomes airborne, like a virus of meaning, leaping from ink to flesh. Maybe both are true. You look up from the parchment, the air feels thicker. It's like the silence is humming now. Your ears pick up the faintest sound, something distant like whispering, but not in any language you know. You hold your breath. It stops. This scroll, it contains names you hadn't noticed before. Etched between the lines of the curse in smaller script are dozens, no hundreds of names. They're arranged in a spiral, tiny handwriting, precise, like someone obsessed. Some names repeat. One appears 15 times, slightly different each time. Albera, Albera, and then simply A. Were these victims, contributors, targets? You remember an old tale told in Yorkshire of a cursed book called the Spiral Ledger. Supposedly kept by a mad friar, it listed every soul he believed to be tainted by the demonic breath. Every time a name was added, that person died within a fortnight, though not always violently. One drowned in his soup. Another fell asleep and never woke up. One simply walked into the forest and was never seen again. According to local legend, the book still exists. It's never been found. Some stories claim it writes in itself. Back in this church, your fingers are colder now. The stain hasn't faded. You try wiping it on the stone. Nothing. You press your fingers to the candlelight and the shadow they cast on the wall trembles, just slightly, like it's no longer attached to you. Maybe it's just your nerves, or maybe not. In 1432, an abbey in Austria reportedly suffered a mass silent exodus. Records show that 70 monks lived there in March. By June, none remained. No bodies were found. No grave sites. The only clue was a locked cabinet behind the altar, discovered years later, containing a scroll almost identical to the one you hold now. The ink was still wet. The air around the cabinet smelled faintly of copper, and the stone beneath it was inexplicably warm to the touch, despite the cold mountain air. The Vatican acquired the scroll. It's never been shown again. Some archivists believe these documents share a common author, one unknown figure responsible for the design, structure, and even ink used in these curses. The handwriting across centuries matches too closely. This idea, known as the black quill hypothesis, remains highly controversial. Historians still argue whether one person could have lived that long or if something else passed the pen along. Your scroll? At the very bottom in tiny block letters, this is the first. First what? Curse? Copy? Victim? A breeze whispers through the church, but there are no open windows. The candles flicker, then stabilize. You feel it before you hear it. A low sigh from beneath the stone. Not wind, not voice. Something older, hungrier, and you realize you've left the scroll open. Section 2. You step back, almost tripping over the raised edge of a floor tile. The scroll lies open on the cold stone before the altar, its curling corners still defying gravity, as if something beneath them resists lying still. The candlelight sputters again, flickering in a rhythm that feels intentional. You glance toward the wooden doors of the church, suddenly unsure whether you'd locked them, or if they were ever really closed. The scroll still displays that final line, etched in unnervingly straight script. This is the first. You don't want to know what the second looks like. But curiosity, as it often does in stories like this, drags your feet forward. Medieval history is full of shadowed corners, but perhaps none darker than the tale of Father Adalbert of Mainz. Adalbert was a well-respected clergyman in the late 1100s, known for his stern but pious demeanor. His sermons were fire and brimstone affairs, the kind that made even devout parishioners squirm. But sometime around 1181, his writings began to shift. Survivors described his tones as frantic, his letters scrawled rather than written, full of Latin verses that didn't quite translate. One letter to a nearby monastery included the phrase, "I have seen the tongue of God, and it was made of fire and bone." They thought he was losing his mind. Until the night he bled black. According to the abbey's internal journal, one not meant for public eyes, Father Adalbert was found collapsed across his writing desk. Ink spilled everywhere, but when one monk tried to clean it, he recoiled. It wasn't ink. It was blood. Thick, dark, almost tar-like, still warm, and there was no wound on the body. Clutched in the priest's hand was a scroll, bound in wax, just like the one you found. What was inside, you ask? That's the curious part. No one knows, because the scroll was never opened. The abbot at the time, Father Joseph of Eisenstadt, reportedly refused to allow anyone to unseal the parchment. He claimed it wept when touched. Instead, he had it buried beneath the altar of the church. Not just laid to rest, but sealed, using a mixture of lead, quicklime, and holy oil. That recipe appears nowhere else in official church doctrine. Some believe Joseph was improvising. Others say he was told how to seal it, by something that whispered to him after dark. Now, the weirdest part of the Father Adalbert episode? He didn't die immediately. There are at least 2 letters sent from him after the date of his supposed death. The writing is unmistakably his, same erratic curves, same manic phrasing, but the ink in those letters has been tested in modern labs. It contains trace amounts of myrrh, ground bone, and gold. Whoever, or whatever, was holding the quill was not writing on behalf of the church. Historians still debate whether these letters are elaborate forgeries, part of a hoax, or perhaps written by someone mimicking his style. But the ink formula is unique and so far has never been found in any other medieval document. It's known in academic circles as ink Adalberti. Archivists handling it report nausea, headaches, and vivid dreams. One even claimed he could see his own name shimmering faintly beneath the text, though no one else could. So what happened to the scroll? The last record of it places it inside a reliquary, locked inside a side chapel in Mainz, and then it disappears. A footnote in the 17th century renovation record says only, item, silver reliquary replaced, contents unworthy of retention. Unworthy? Or too dangerous? Back in the church where you stand, you can't shake the image of that poor priest, hunched over a scroll, bleeding out in a pool of something that wasn't quite his. You step closer to your own parchment again, now almost expecting it to do something. Move, burn, speak, but it just lies there, still open. And that smell returns, faint, metallic, like old coins and iron keys. You rub your fingers together. The black stain hasn't gone. It's dry now, but when you hold your hand up to the candlelight, the skin between your fingers glistens with something that reflects like oil. You blink, and for just a second you swear you see script crawling across your palm. Gone as quickly as it came. You don't know Latin, but somehow you almost recognized a word. The root of it was silere, to be silent, or to be silenced. Maybe that's coincidence, maybe not. There's an account in 1217 from a small priory near Antwerp where the entire congregation fell into a week-long silence after the sudden death of their head priest. A visiting monk claimed he discovered a parchment scroll under the man's bed, sealed again in wax and wrapped in twine made of horsehair. The monk read a portion aloud before supper. That night, no one spoke. Not out of mourning. They couldn't. Mouths opened, but no sound came out. It lasted exactly 7 days. On the 8th day, they all spoke in unison. It is not ours to tell, and then never spoke of it again. That scroll, also lost. The priory burned to the ground 40 years later, no cause found. The idea of a silencing curse was once considered superstition, until fragments of other scrolls were unearthed in monasteries across Europe, each containing phrases like "hold thy breath for him who listens," and "cut the tongue lest it betray thee." Are these metaphors? Poetic warnings? Or instructions? You look at your candle now, watching the wax pool and drip. Each slow drop echoes like a footstep. You haven't moved in a while. Your hand is still held in front of the flame. When you lower it, the script on your skin is gone, but the feeling isn't. You have the strangest sensation, that someone has just finished writing something on your back. You spin around. Nothing. Just the quiet church, the cold stone, the scroll lying open, and that whisper in the air like parchment rubbing against itself in the dark. You take a breath. Then you notice something new on the scroll. The bottom corner? Yes, there. Just above the wax seal that you broke. In tiny, almost imperceptible script, now you are second. Section 3. Your knees ache from kneeling on the stone floor, but you can't bring yourself to rise. The words on the scroll haven't changed, but your sense of time has. Has it been 5 minutes? 20? Outside it's darker now. You didn't notice the sunset. Now you are second. The sentence sits at the edge of the scroll like a secret someone dared not fully write. You run your finger over it, and the ink smears, still wet. It shouldn't be. The air is dry, and the church is cold, yet the text seems to breathe with a life of its own. That phrase haunts you. Second implies first. You remember it clearly. This is the first. So now there are two? Two what? Your hands shake. You need air. You gather the scroll, wrapping it carefully in the sleeve of your jacket. You don't know why you're taking it, but leaving it behind feels worse. As you walk toward the great wooden doors of the chapel, you hesitate. The wood is warm, not just room temperature, warm. You place your palm against it and feel a low rhythmic pulse. Not like a heartbeat, slower, like something sleeping deep beneath the earth. You pull open the doors, and the air hits you like a gasp you didn't know you were holding. Cold, real, untouched by the inside, you stumble into the night. But the scroll is still warm in your hands. That warmth, it reminds you of a story you once heard from a museum archivist in Ghent. It was told over coffee and sounded like a campfire tale, but the woman telling it never smiled. She'd been cataloging items recovered from a collapsed 14th century abbey. Among the debris was a sealed metal cylinder. When they opened it, inside was a short scroll, brittle but mostly intact, coated in red wax. It smelled of cloves and ash. The scribe who transcribed it, a student intern, 22 years old, woke that night to find his hands blistered. Not burned, blistered from the inside, as if his skin were pushing out memories that weren't his. He claimed he'd begun dreaming in Latin, perfect Latin, and in those dreams he stood in front of an endless crowd of people, all of whom had his face, all of them whispering the same thing. He writes, we sleep. The archivist quit. The scroll was locked in a climate-controlled vault, and last anyone checked has been marked restricted indefinitely. The intern? He vanished 2 months later while hiking in the Ardennes. No remains were ever found. Historians still argue whether the scroll caused it or whether it was merely a coincidence, but some note that the original abbey where it was found was destroyed in a freak lightning fire on a clear night with no storms in the region for days before or after. The only thing to survive the fire? The vault that held the scroll. Back in your car, you finally allow yourself to breathe normally. You turn the ignition, but for a moment, nothing happens. The lights don't flicker. The engine doesn't sputter. It just waits. Then it starts. As you drive, the scroll sits on the passenger seat, wrapped in your jacket. You glance at it, trying not to, as if looking too long might trigger something. Your phone buzzes. A message from a number you don't recognize. Do not read it aloud. You freeze. There's no name, no contact photo, just that message. You glance at the scroll again. You haven't read anything aloud, not really. But your mouth is dry. Your throat feels sore. Did you whisper? You pull over at a gas station, the kind that seems permanently stuck in the 1980s, all buzzing fluorescent lights and stale coffee. You leave the scroll locked in the car. As you step inside, the cashier, a wiry old man with cracked glasses, doesn't look up. You grab water, approach the counter. He finally glances at you, then at your hands. He frowns. You touch ink? He asks. You pause. What do you mean? He shrugs, but you see his eyes flick to the parking lot, to your car. People bring back strange things from that hill, he mutters. Old places, places that don't like to be disturbed. You force a smile. I was just in the church. He doesn't smile back. That church was condemned in '74. You blink. What? He doesn't answer. Instead, he reaches under the counter and slides across a small yellowed card. On it, printed in faded type. Notice to local explorers. The chapel of St. Calvus was officially sealed following the 1974 incident. Access beyond the altar is prohibited. Any recovered manuscript should be reported to the diocesan authority. Do not attempt translation. Do not unseal scrolls. Do not write in the margins. You stare at it. The card trembles slightly in your hand. Who wrote this, you ask? The cashier shrugs. I didn't make the card. Just keep them by the register. You're not the first. You rush back to your car. The scroll is still there, unmoving, but the wax seal you broke is no longer in pieces. It's somehow whole again, as if it had never been tampered with. You unwrap it. It's warm. Still, you hesitate. And then, against all better judgment, you unroll the scroll once more. There's a new line, not written in ink. It looks burned into the parchment, as if with a hot needle. You're not the third. It's not a message. It's a warning. Section Boer, you sit frozen in the driver's seat. The scroll unrolled across your lap like a coiled serpent. Its brittle edges tremble slightly with each breath you take, though there's no breeze in the car. Your eyes fixate on the new line, burned, not written, into the parchment. You're not the third. Not the third? That means you're the second. The second of what? A chill crawls down your neck. The air inside the vehicle is heavier now, like it's been pulled into a denser silence. You wrap the scroll again in your jacket, almost afraid it might somehow breathe if left exposed. Then, slowly, you start the car and pull out into the empty road. You drive without a destination. You just need to be moving. Away from the church. Away from that voice, whatever it was, that whispered behind your ear. Not in words, but in meaning. You don't dare check your phone again. The first message was enough. Do not read it aloud. Somewhere in your memory you recall an old rectory on the edge of town, an archive for the local diocese, quietly maintained by a few remaining nuns and historians. It's the kind of place where dusty manuscripts still line the shelves and where the air always smells faintly of candle wax, even though no candles have been lit there in decades. You find yourself pulling into the parking lot before you even realize where you're going. The building is tall and narrow, the bricks dark with age. Above the door, a rusted iron cross leans slightly to one side. You knock, and after a long pause, the heavy door creaks open. The woman behind it looks as though she's been awake for centuries. Wire-rimmed glasses, gray bun, sharp eyes that seem to know you before you say a word. Her name tag, faded but legible, reads Sister Maeve. "You're not here for genealogy," she says dryly. Not a question, more like a tired statement of fact. You shake your head. "I found something beneath the altar at St. Calvis." Her expression tightens. She glances past you toward your car, as though she already knows what you've brought. She steps aside. "You'd better come in." The rectory is colder than outside, the kind of cold that clings to paper and stone. You follow Sister Maeve down a narrow corridor into a reading room lined with oak bookshelves. The lights overhead flicker slightly, fluorescent, humming like bees in a jar. You place the scroll on a velvet-lined tray. She doesn't touch it. She just looks. "I've seen one before," she murmurs, "but never open." You tell her everything. How you found it, the strange ink, the writing that seems to change when you're not looking. You mention the voice, the black stain on your fingers, the whisper that told you, "Let me write." She listens in silence, her hands folded tightly in front of her. When you finish, she turns and pulls a thick file folder from the cabinet behind her. Inside are 6 old photographs, black and white, most blurred around the edges. Each photo shows a scroll, some rolled, some flat, some partially burned. Every one of them shares the same pattern, a central block of Latin text surrounded by a spiral of names. Each has a final line at the bottom. "Do not let it learn your name. One voice is always listening. If it writes back, it has chosen you." You feel a sharp pull in your stomach at that last one. The message on your scroll makes more sense now. You're not the third. It wasn't a statement of safety. It was a sequence. You're the second, which means a third is coming, or worse, needed. "What are these?" you ask, your voice barely audible. Sister Maeve exhales slowly. "They're containers," she says. "Written curses designed not just to harm, but to trap something. Not demons necessarily. Something older, more formless, curses of intent." "Intent?" you repeat. She nods. "Pain, grief, hunger, the kind of emotion that festers until it becomes something else. Something with teeth. And when it's written down just right, when the pattern is perfect, it stops being memory and starts being presence." You stare at the scroll again. "Why under altars?" She turns to you, her voice low. "Because the altar is a threshold. It's a place where the sacred and the mundane intersect. In medieval times, priests would trap things there, seal them beneath prayer and stone, not to protect people from the object, but to protect the object from the world." That flips something in your brain. The scroll wasn't hidden to keep it safe. It was locked away because the world couldn't handle what it contained. Sister Maeve returns with a book, thick, bound in cracked leather, its title in Latin, Scriptura Morientium, the writing of the dying. "This came from a monastery in Wales," she says. "They used it to catalog cursed documents, over 400 entries. Most are gone now, lost in fires, floods, disappearances." She flips through the pages until you both stop at an illustration, a scroll, identical to yours. Your breath catches in your throat. Below the sketch is an inscription, translated into careful English. "First bled black, second heard the voice, third will write." The air feels thinner. You look at your fingers again. The black stain hasn't faded. In fact, it's spreading slightly, branching into faint, hairline veins up your wrist. You hadn't noticed it until now. You whisper, "It's in me." Sister Maeve watches you, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and something else, maybe pity. "You're not possessed," she says gently. "Not yet. But the writing is inside you now. It wants a hand, a voice, a mind. You feel something move just beneath your skin. "What happens if I don't write?" you ask. She shrugs. "It finds another." The room falls silent. And then your phone buzzes again. You already know who it's from. Same number, same black screen. This time, the message is just 3 words. "Do it now." Section 5. You stare at the screen. Do it now. Your thumb hovers over the message, trembling. You don't reply. You don't delete it either. It just sits there, pulsing quietly like an infection beneath the skin. You look up at Sister Maeve. The scroll is still laid open on the velvet tray between you, and somehow its presence feels louder now. Who would send that, you whisper. She doesn't answer right away. Instead, she walks to the far end of the room, opens a cabinet, and pulls out a thin, oilskin-wrapped book. No title on the front, no markings, just a worn leather strap holding it shut. You're not the first to ask that, she says softly. People who touch the scroll, sometimes they start hearing the same message through different channels, phones, radios, even in dreams. The voice doesn't need language, it needs permission. You swallow. Permission for what? To write. She unwraps the book slowly and opens it. Inside are hundreds of pages, each one filled with what looks like medieval script, but the ink is oddly modern. Some lines smudge, some fade mid-word, and others drip like they were written in haste. Margins are filled with scribbled annotations, and then you see them. Names. Your name is not there yet, but close to the back of the book, one page stands out. Blank, except for 3 words. He wrote back. You shudder. There's a term that's circulated in fringe historical circles. Echo curses. These were believed to be spells or incantations that didn't just act once, but responded, adapted, and grew with interaction. Like a feedback loop of malice. The more attention you give them, the stronger they become. The more you fear them, the more aware they grow. Historians still argue whether the concept echo curses is legitimate folklore or an invention of post-war occult writers, but the pattern is hard to ignore. Scrolls discovered in different centuries with eerily similar traits, all ending with cryptic instructions or threats that seem to respond to their readers. As if they're watching. You glance back at your phone. The message is gone. No deleted notification, just vanished. Someone else is watching this scroll, you murmur. Sister Maeve nods. Or something. You close the cursed book and back away from the tray. The scroll now seems to pulse faintly in the dim light of the archive room, like a living creature waiting to exhale. You feel something shifting inside your chest. A tickle behind your breastbone, like a string being tugged from deep within. You ask, carefully, has anyone ever stopped it? Maeve pauses. Then she walks over to a drawer and unlocks it with a key she wears around her neck. From inside, she pulls out a photo, yellowed, torn, the edges burnt. It's a picture of a man, maybe in his late 30s. He's seated at a desk, looking directly at the camera. His hands are blackened up to the forearms, as though dipped in ink or tar. He was a monk, she says. Brother Emmerich, he found a scroll just like yours in a monastery attic in 1924, decided to study it in secret, transcribed the whole thing. And then, she doesn't finish the sentence. You don't ask her to. You turn the photo over. Scrawled in faded pencil, 3rd. He wrote, then burned. The skin on your arms prickles. Burned the scroll, you ask. No, she says grimly. Burned himself. Silence again, thicker this time. There's another buzz from your phone. This time it doesn't come as a message. Instead, the screen lights up and displays a blank caller ID, just the words unknown writer. You don't answer. You don't have to, because the screen flickers once and then begins to type on its own. Just 4 words, write or be written. You slam the phone down on the table, your breath coming faster now. The scroll still open in front of you glows with the barest shimmer of heat, like embers waiting to flare. It's giving me a choice, you mutter. Maeve nods. That's the last step. Once it speaks, once it knows your name, it offers you a role. You can write or it writes you. What does that mean, you demand? What happens if it writes me? Her expression hardens. You stop being the reader. You become the story. You look again at your hands. The black ink stain is no longer a stain. It's a shape, curved like a letter, branching out like a root. And just beneath your skin, faintly, you see script forming. Tiny curling letters like veins made of language. It's writing in you already. You grab your bag, stuff the scroll inside, and stand. I have to get rid of it. Burning doesn't work, Maeve warns. Then I'll bury it. She shakes her head. It will still find someone. If not you, then the next. And now that it knows you, it will follow. You feel lightheaded. You need to move. Need air. You stumble out of the rectory, down the front steps, back into the parking lot. The sky is darker than before, thick clouds hiding the moon. You open the car door and freeze. The scroll is already unwrapped. You didn't do that. The parchment lies open on the passenger seat, though you're certain you folded it. New text has appeared. You lean closer, it reads, "Your silence is writing." You don't understand what that means until you realize that you've been thinking in loops, obsessing, replaying every word you've read, every line you've seen. That thinking about it feeds it. That trying not to write is, in some twisted way, a form of participation. You're already writing, in your head. The scroll twitches just slightly. A corner lifts, not from wind, from breath, yours. Inside the glove compartment, you find a pen. Just a pen, harmless, familiar, and yet, the longer you look at it, the more it feels like a loaded weapon. Your fingers curl toward it on their own. Then your phone buzzes one last time. One word. Begin.
Section 6. You're still staring at the pen. It rests in your hand now, like it's always belonged there. Lightweight, smooth, innocent. And yet your fingers ache from holding it. Not in the way muscles fatigue, but like the ache of pressure building behind a dam. You've written thousands of words in your life, school essays, grocery lists, maybe even a poem or two. But none of those ever felt dangerous. This does. This feels like drawing a blade across paper, and the blood won't be on the page, it'll be yours. The scroll lies open on the passenger seat, still, silent. But the air around it vibrates, barely noticeable at first, like the low hum of electricity. You squint, and the text seems to shimmer. Not change, but breathe, and then something new appears. Not burned this time, not etched, handwritten, in your own handwriting. We begin with a name. You don't remember writing that. You start the car, needing to move. To escape the stifling air, the way the scroll seems to pull at you like a thread from inside your chest. You drive aimlessly through back roads lined with skeletal trees, past shuttered shops and empty houses with their curtains drawn like the world has decided not to watch what comes next. Your mind races. The scroll wants a name. You remember what Sister Maeve said, "Do not let it learn your name." But that's already happened, hasn't it? It messaged you. It knew you. It sent a warning. You're not the third. So who is the third? You pull into a gas station, but you don't get out. Just sit under the flickering lights, engine off, hands still tight around the pen. You check your phone, no new messages, no calls, just your reflection in the black screen, a faint ghost of your own face staring back. You look tired, paler than you remember. Something in your eyes seems hollowed, and that's when you see it in the rearview mirror, a shadow in the back seat. You spin around, empty. Of course it is, but you felt it, that sudden weight in the air. The way the light dimmed for half a second like someone else blinked inside your vision. You exhale shaking, then a rustle. Not outside, not on the roof. From the scroll, you look again. New writing now, more lines appearing in real time now, each letter etched with an invisible quill across ancient parchment. You read it out loud before you can stop yourself. To name is to bind. To write is to free. You choke on the words, immediately regretting it. The air turns sharp, cold enough to fog the inside of your windshield. A whisper coils around your ear. One name, one thread, one door. You shiver. You've heard of this in mythology, folk stories, the way old beliefs taught that names held power. That to know a name was to gain control. That's why ancient gods had hidden names. Why curses often began with an invocation, a naming ritual. Historians still argue whether medieval exorcism rites were based on actual faith or superstition. But they almost always began the same way, by demanding the demon's name. Because once you name something, you draw it out. You trap it. Or worse, you invite it. You realize then, this scroll isn't asking for your name. It's asking for its own. Because once you write it, once you give it a name, it's no longer a trapped thing. It's born. You slam the scroll shut, wrap it in your jacket again, and toss it into the back seat. You drive without direction, heart hammering, unsure of what you're running from or toward. Then suddenly, you remember something. A story you read once, late at night, in a fringe historical forum, about a 14th century monk named Garridan who went blind after transcribing a cursed scroll. Not just blind, but silently blind. He never screamed, never cried, just closed his eyes and refused to open them again. When others asked what he saw, he said only this: "I wrote what wasn't mine to write." His scroll was eventually buried beneath a monastery floor in Italy. The entire building collapsed 20 years later in an earthquake, except for one room. The scroll was never recovered. Coincidence or unfinished business? You grip the wheel tighter. The pen in your hand feels heavier now, its tip almost trembling as if resisting you. The still in the back seat starts to make a faint noise. A scratching, soft, like nails on paper, like a quill dragging itself across the parchment. You glance in the mirror again. There's writing on your rear windshield. Condensation has fogged the glass, and across the mist, a single word appears from the inside out. Right. You slam the brakes. The car skids, tires squealing against asphalt. You don't crash, but you pull off the road fast, heart pounding, breath ragged. You turn off the engine, silence roaring around you. Then the whisper again. If not you, who? You whisper back, what do you want? And for the first time, it answers clearly, witness. Your hand begins to move on its own. The pen hovers over the dashboard notepad you didn't know you grabbed. You fight it, every muscle straining, yet the urge is overwhelming. Your hand shakes violently, but you force it still. Then a new thought slithers into your mind, soft and treacherous. What if you just write one line? Just one. What harm could that do? It wouldn't be giving in. It would be investigating. It would be control. Wouldn't it? You open the notepad, hold the pen. One word, just one. The scroll waits behind you, silent but humming, as if listening with something deeper than ears. You press the pen down and you write, I bear witness. The second you lift the pen, the air splits. Not with sound, but absence, like something being pulled from your lungs, like silence sharpening into a scream that only reality can hear. The scroll unrolls itself in the back seat. Not physically, but in your mind. You see every letter, every curse, every name, a spiral, a web, a labyrinth of ink, and in the center, a mirror, your reflection. Now you understand, it never needed a name, it needed a mirror.
Section 7. You sit motionless, hands still clutching the pen, the words, I bear witness, glowing faintly on the paper in your lap, though there's no ink, no light, nothing that should cause them to shimmer. Your breath is shallow. You feel hollowed out, like the act of writing those 3 words has taken something from you that can't be returned. Not time, not memory. Something deeper. The scroll is quiet now, but not in peace. It's the kind of quiet you feel in a tomb, the kind that comes after the last breath. You turn in your seat and look at it, still coiled, still, but it has changed. It feels satisfied. The radio in your car crackles to life, though it was never turned on. No station, just static, low and steady. Then, faintly, beneath the white noise, you hear something, a voice, your voice, repeating the words, I bear witness, I bear witness, I bear witness. You slam the power knob, but it keeps playing. You unplug the battery from the dash. Still, it continues, softly, like a mantra sewn into the fabric of the car. And it gets worse. Now it's not just your voice, it's others, layered. Dozens of voices whispering in harmony, high and low, old and young, some chanting in Latin, others in languages you can't even begin to place. They speak over one another like an ocean of echoes. One line keeps returning, louder than the rest. He who writes becomes. You shove open the car door and step into the night. The trees around you are silent, too silent, not a single leaf rustles. No bugs, no distant cars. The only sound is the scraping of your own thoughts. You check your phone. No signal, no bars, no GPS, just one new note in your app. It simply says, third is almost here. That's when you remember the pattern. First bled, second heard, third writes. You've done all 3. You try to deny it, to fight the logic forming like frost on a window pane, but the pieces lock into place anyway. That warning wasn't about someone else coming. It was about you becoming. You've crossed the threshold. You are the third. You stumble through the underbrush beside the road, needing to be away from the car, from the scroll, from everything. The woods aren't deep, but they're old. You recognize the scent of wet moss, the damp snap of branches beneath your feet, the heavy, humid air pressing down like the sky's about to collapse. And then you see it, a clearing. At the center, a flat stone, half buried in earth, covered in faded carvings worn by rain and time. But one symbol remains sharp, the spiral, just like the one on the scroll. You're not the first to come here. Someone else came before, maybe centuries ago, maybe days, maybe you. You kneel beside the stone and feel the grooves. They hum with faint warmth. And then you notice something else, a hollow space beneath the slab. A cavity. Something was placed here. Or buried. You dig, Dirt under your nails, sweat down your back. Your fingers hit something, cloth, then parchment. Another scroll. You recoil, but it's already too late. The shape, the smell, the faint line of Latin peeking through cracked wax, it's identical. A twin, no reflection. You open it against all reason, and what you find are names. Dozens, hundreds, all written in different hands. Some elegant, some desperate, some barely legible, scratched out in haste. Every one of them a witness. Every one of them someone like you. And next to each, a place, a date, a time. Some are centuries old, others are terrifyingly recent. You find one dated 3 days ago, no name, just a line. He chose silence, and beneath it, nothing, just blank space, waiting. Then your scroll, the bursts into flame in the car behind you. Not an explosion, just a soft ignition like dry paper kissing fire. You run back to it, heart pounding, but the fire doesn't consume it. It burns in a perfect spiral, edges curling inwards, the center untouched, as if it's revealing rather than destroying. The flames form letters, shapes, words. A sentence forms in fire. Your story has begun. And you understand in that moment what the curse really is. It's not a single scroll, not a piece of parchment sealed in wax. It's the act, the ritual, the cycle. Each time someone reads, each time someone hears, each time someone speaks of it, writes about it, remembers it, the curse is memory, attention, language. You were never meant to survive this, not because it kills you, but because it uses you, because you are now the next link, the scribe, the witness, the continuation. You stumble back from the car, eyes watering from smoke and knowing. Your mind swims with words that don't belong to you, sentences you've never thought but somehow understand. Latin, Old English, something older. You hear a voice behind you, close, whispering directly into your right ear. There must always be a third. You don't turn around, because you already know who it is.
Section 8, you don't turn. You can't. Your legs lock, breath frozen in your chest. You stand there, stiff as a tombstone, knowing that whatever is behind you isn't meant to be seen, only felt. The whisper in your ear lingers, not just as sound, but as a pressure, like a cold fingertip resting just behind your jaw. There must always be a third. The sentence echoes not just in your head, but inside your bones. You finally muster the strength to move, not by turning around, but by stepping sideways, keeping your back to the woods and your eyes on the still burning scroll. The flames rise and fall unnaturally, dancing in precise patterns. Not random, scripted, like the fire itself is writing now, continuing what you started. For a moment, you glimpse symbols in the flames, spirals, circles, letters that aren't Latin, aren't anything modern, just shapes your mind struggles to comprehend. But they pulse in rhythm with your heartbeat. You whisper, "I'm not going to write anymore." The flames crackle louder. Then the whisper returns, this time from inside your own head. "You already did." Your legs give out. You drop to your knees in the wet leaves. The earth feels wrong, hollow beneath your weight. You press your hands to the soil and feel it, vibrating, not from seismic activity, from movement below, like something turning slowly in its sleep. You gasp for breath, heart thudding like a war drum. Then you hear something you hadn't realized you missed. Footsteps, far off, crunching through the forest. You look up. A figure, walking through the trees. Human, but wrong. Too tall, limbs too fluid, head tilted just a bit too far, like it's listening for something just outside your frequency. It's holding something in its hand, a pen, and in its other, a scroll. Not yours, another. It stops a few feet away, just outside the clearing, and it speaks in your voice. Third. You stagger back, hand over your mouth, you shake your head. "No, I didn't finish. I only wrote a line." The figure tilts its head in perfect mimicry, but you witnessed. The air grows colder again, but this time it doesn't feel natural. It's a vacuum, like something is pulling the warmth, the memory, the very meaning of this place away from you. The figure steps forward, slowly, not threatening, but inevitable, the way night follows sunset. Its features begin to shift now, mirroring yours. Your eyes, your nose, a grotesque mockery of your own expression. Historians still argue whether the concept of the mirrored self was symbolic in medieval occultism or a literal belief that your soul could be split by certain rituals and the reflection would become an entity of its own. They called it umbra animus, the shadow soul, a second you, created not by nature but by action. This thing, it is your umbra. It's what you become if you keep writing. It holds out the scroll, not forcefully, gently, as if offering a gift. You stand, wavering. Why me, you ask? The voice replies from inside your chest now. Because you looked, because you listened, because you dared to ask. You shake your head. I didn't choose this, but you didn't walk away. You think back to that first moment in the chapel when you found the scroll. You could have left it buried, called someone, never read the words aloud, never let the whisper slip into your bones, and now it's in everything. You reach into your coat and pull out the charred edge of your original scroll. Despite the flames, it still exists, proof that what burns in this story doesn't end, it only evolves. You face the thing with your face and you ask, what happens if I say no? The wind stills. The trees fall silent again. Then the figure smiles. That is somehow worse than any scream. It answers simply, then someone else writes, and you watch. And in your gut, you understand what it means. If you stop now, if you don't take up the role, then this thing will move on to someone else, someone innocent. It will whisper into their dreams, creep through their thoughts, offer them the pen you refused, and you'll live, but only to become the next witness, the observer, the one who carries the memory, unable to forget. Forced to watch others repeat your steps again and again. You feel it now. That's the true curse, not death. Continuation. You look down at your hands. The black markings have returned. Only now they move slowly across your skin in curling lines. Sentences. You read the one near your wrist. The third nose. The scroll flutters in the doppelganger's hand. It waits. You exhale, close your eyes, and you do something that feels both final and inevitable. You reach out and take the scroll. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the world folds, not literally, but emotionally, like someone has flipped a page in a book you didn't know you were inside. The forest shudders, the stars blink, the flames vanish, and the scroll, once glowing, once pulsing, now feels still. Ordinary. Except it's not, because now it contains you. You hear the voice one final time. Third becomes first. Then silence.
Section 9. The words hang in your head like a bell that never stops ringing. Third becomes first. You don't know how long you stand there, scroll in hand, as the forest exhales a silence that feels ancient, a silence that remembers. The figure, the echo of you, is gone, vanished without a step, like it was never really a body, only an idea, only a warning, or maybe a mirror, finally absorbed. You feel heavier now, not physically, not even spiritually. It's weight in a different sense, like you're holding up a sky no one else can see. Your phone vibrates once. You glance down, half afraid of what it will say this time. But it's not a text, it's a file, a Word doc. No sender, no title. Just one word in the corner of your notification bar, drafting. You don't open it. You already know what it is. It's writing itself. You stagger toward the car. You expect the flames, the smell of ash, but everything's intact. The back door is open. The seatbelt uncoiled. The driver's seat turned ever so slightly to face the scroll, as if inviting it to ride shotgun. You pause, unsure. Because the moment you sit behind the wheel again, that's when this becomes yours. And yet you do it. Because the alternative is letting someone else bear it. The pen is already on the dashboard, waiting. Just like before. You place the scroll gently in the passenger seat. It makes no sound, but something inside you shifts, like a lock sliding into place, like a door just closed behind you, softly but permanently. You start the car, no destination, just the feeling that you need to keep moving. That stillness is surrender. The GPS comes to life. You didn't touch it. It says continue path, estimated arrival 3:33 a.m. No location, no map, just the command. Continue. You do. Mile after mile passes, but nothing looks familiar anymore. Not the highway, not the towns, not even the sky. It's all just muted, distant, like you're moving through a story that's already been written, the ink still wet. You glance at the scroll. More words now. No fire, no whisper, just text. And the handwriting is yours. You scan the lines and realize they're moments, not from history, from your life. That thing you said in high school, the first time you lied to your parents, the text you never sent, the time you were too afraid to say I'm sorry. The scroll is writing your truth, not the truth of what happened, but the truth of who you are, your flaws, your fears, the parts you buried. You don't remember writing them, but they're yours. One line near the center catches your eye. It's glowing faintly. This is how a curse survives. not by hatred but by memory. Historians still argue whether curses were ever about vengeance or if they were simply recordings, a way of remembering pain so it would never be repeated, a grim kind of immortality. What you're holding now, it's not a weapon, it's a record. You suddenly understand what Meve meant. The scroll doesn't curse with fire or blood, it curses with legacy. You've become its new chapter, its next paragraph, and eventually its author. At 3:33 a.m., your car slows on its own. No gas station, no building, just a stone arch in the middle of nowhere, ivy-covered, crumbling, standing across a narrow dirt path that leads into what looks like an abandoned cloister. You park. The moment the engine shuts off, the scroll unfurls across your lap. At the very bottom is a blank line, and a space beneath it labeled Witness's Testament. Your hands move without permission. The pen is in your grip. The scroll trembles, not from wind, but from expectation. You know what comes next. You're not writing a curse, you're finishing one, maybe the oldest one. You think of everyone who came before, the hundreds of names on the buried scroll, the burned monk, the voice in the archive, the second, the first. You write, I am the third, I remember. And the scroll stops vibrating. You feel emptied, not drained, not destroyed, just recorded. You step from the car and walk through the arch. The forest doesn't follow, the wind doesn't stir, but the world feels cleaner somehow. The curse isn't gone, but it's sleeping, because for now someone carries it, and that someone is you. Section 10. You pass beneath the arch, as though it's a doorway to another time. The dirt crunches beneath your shoes with each hesitant step, and the air shifts, cooler, heavier, like an old cathedral holding its breath. The path leads through tangled brush into a clearing overgrown with weeds and broken stone. You're surrounded by crumbled walls and mossy remnants of what must have been a cloister. A half-fallen bell tower leans like a tired giant. No signs, no gravestones, just forgotten stone and silence. You stand at the edge of the ruins with the scroll tucked under your arm. The ink still glistens faintly even in the darkness, as if your final line, I am the third, I remember, gave it not an ending, but a new direction. And you feel it inside you now. Not just a presence, a pattern. That's what this is, you realize. Not a singular curse, but a framework. A structure meant to replicate itself through attention, through language, through you. You're not cursed in the way the stories say, not doomed to die screaming or vanish into fog. You're worse. You're now the keeper. The only thing scarier than a curse that kills is one that survives. You cross the clearing, boots brushing away centuries of dust. And there, nestled against a collapsed wall, you find it. A stone altar. The same kind that once stood in the chapel where this all began. Only this one is cracked down the center, split like an old wound. You brush away debris and find a recess beneath it, carved neatly into the earth. It's empty, waiting. This is the moment, isn't it? The scroll begins to warm in your hand. You kneel and place it inside. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the earth around it shudders slightly as if accepting the offering. Vines twitch along the stone, curling toward the edges of the scroll like green fingers reaching out in thanks. The ink darkens momentarily, like breath pulled inward, and then stillness. No burst of light, no earthquake, just a long, deep quiet settling over the clearing like dust. You step back, you've sealed it again, but you haven't ended it. You know that now, because the scroll doesn't want to end. It doesn't need to. So long as someone remembers, someone writes, someone fears, the curse continues. You glance down at your hands, the black markings are gone, but the memory isn't. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the curse was never about punishment or possession, but about preservation. A story so old, so hungry, it needed living hosts to survive. Not through belief, through participation. You walk back toward the arch, the path suddenly feeling narrower, the air lighter. The moment you step beneath it, your phone vibrates again. No message, no call, just a note, a draft. You open it. One line, section 1. Hey guys, tonight we... You freeze. That's not yours. Not yet. But you recognize it. Because it's the beginning of a story you'll someday tell. Maybe on a podcast, maybe on a video, maybe to someone sitting across from you in the dark, phone screen glowing, eyes wide, breath caught. Because that's how it survives. Not in archives or old stone chapels, but in retellings. You stare at the line. Part of you wants to delete it to purge every trace of what happened, but you don't. You can't, because it's still writing. The draft grows longer with each breath. Your thoughts appear on the screen, not as you think them, but just before, like the story knows you too well now, knows your pacing, your cadence, even your half jokes. You probably won't survive this. It even types the cheeky line, and now you feel the truth settle fully into place. This isn't a scroll anymore, it's a script, and you've become the narrator, your voice, your phrasing, your curse. Historians still argue whether oral curses were as powerful as written ones, but what they often miss is that spoken stories travel faster, they reach farther, and they're remembered longer. That's what the scroll figured out. It doesn't need ink anymore. It has you. You close the phone gently, then say out loud softly, "Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum," and your voice carries just like it always does. Section 11. You sit in your car for a long time, parked beneath that broken archway, letting the weight of what's happened settle in your bones. There's no fanfare, no glowing eyes in the trees, no thunder from the heavens. The world has returned to its steady, indifferent rhythm, but you haven't. Inside, something has shifted, quietly, permanently. A kind of mental tension, like you've stepped through a door that locks itself behind you. You glance again at your phone. That phantom document is still there. Not open, not closed, just waiting. The cursor pulses at the end of that first line. "Hey guys, tonight we..." You haven't touched the keyboard, but every time you glance at it, the temptation builds, not to escape the curse, but to explain it, to shape it into something coherent, to make sense of what you saw, what you heard, what you almost became. You remember what Maeve said, "If you don't finish the story, it will." So maybe that's why it's still clinging to you, not out of malice, but because the story remains unfinished. Not the scrolls, but yours. You sigh, start the car, and roll back onto the road. But this time, you don't follow the GPS. You drive without direction, letting the hum of tires on asphalt soothe the tremors in your chest. Somewhere along the way, you pass a rusted sign that says, "Alton Hollow, Est 1816, and suddenly, the memory comes rushing back. You'd read about this place years ago, a ghost town, one of many that dot the countryside, left behind after mines dried up and railroads bypassed their veins. But Alton Hollow wasn't abandoned because of industry. It was abandoned because of language. In 1861, the entire population, some 76 people, vanished within a week. No signs of struggle, no bodies, just silence, their homes untouched, food still on plates. One witness, a preacher who returned from a trip to a nearby county, claimed he found a single sentence scratched into every home's front door. They said the words. He never explained what those words were, only that he refused to repeat them. He left Alton Hollow that night and never returned. Historians dismissed it as folklore, yet no one has successfully settled the town since. Surveyors, urban explorers, amateur ghost hunters, they all report the same thing. It feels like something's listening. So you park the car on the outskirts of the overgrown road, curiosity overriding fear. If the curse wants to be witnessed, if it feeds on voice, memory, retelling, maybe this is where you'll find the missing pieces. You walk, past the iron gate, past rotted fence posts, wildflowers growing through kitchen tiles, past homes that still stand despite a century of neglect, their windows dark, their curtains unmoved. No birds, no wind, just that same tension in the air. You step inside the old church first. The door creaks but doesn't protest. The pews are coated in moss, the altar cracked, but carved into the back wall, clearer than anything else, is a spiral. Again, and beside it, words, barely legible. She spoke the lines and the house remembered her. You whisper it aloud before you can stop yourself. The air responds, not with sound, but with presence. Suddenly, you feel that familiar whisper, only this time it isn't trying to instruct you. It's waiting, expectantly. You turn toward the altar. Behind it, beneath fallen beams and shattered glass, you spot what looks like a trapdoor. It's unlocked. Of course it is. You descend carefully, flashlight trembling in your hand. The air grows colder with each step, damp, still. And at the bottom, a library, a forgotten underground room filled with scrolls, not parchment like yours, but notebooks, journals, lined paper, printer pages, all stacked into crude shelves bound with leather straps wrapped in twine, all written in different hands. Modern, ancient, everything in between. You pick one up at random. Inside, a woman's handwriting, dated 1973. She writes about finding a book in a used bookstore in Chicago. She says she read only the first page before hearing scratching at her window every night. Then one day, she found her own handwriting on the walls. She had never written those words. You flip a few pages further, drawings, spirals, names, all signed the same way. I am the third. I remember. You open another, a teenage boy, 2004, internet forum, a post about cursed code that changes itself when shared. He tried to delete it. It wouldn't let him. And another, 1941, a soldier stationed in North Africa found a scroll buried in desert ruins, wrote down its contents. His entire unit disappeared overnight. Only he was left, and the scroll was gone. You step back, stunned. These aren't stories. Each of them like you. Each of them a witness. You take out your phone again. That draft, it's grown. Lines you don't remember typing. Images that echo what you've just read. It's not writing the story of the scroll. It's writing you. And maybe, just maybe, that's the point. The scroll doesn't want to be hidden. It doesn't want to be locked away. It wants to be recorded, shared, echoed. And when you tell your version, your memories, your encounters, it leaves you intact. Mostly. But if you refuse, if you bury it, destroy it, deny it, it will write you anyway. And it won't be gentle. You look back at the shelves of journals. There's no system here, no catalog, just voices in a dark place, trying not to be forgotten. You slide one of your own notebooks into an empty slot on the shelf, then whisper, I remember, and the whisper replies, so will they. Section 12. The air inside the underground library grows thicker, like memory settling into dust. You stand perfectly still, fingers resting on the spine of the notebook you just placed. You expect movement, a shift in the dark, a rush of breath behind your ear, but there is only silence and the weight of hundreds of recorded experiences surrounding you. For a moment, it feels sacred, not in the way of churches or rituals, but in the way old bones are sacred. These journals, scraps of paper, torn receipts with cryptic phrases, they're tombstones. Each one represents someone who faced the scroll and chose to record rather than run. A graveyard of truth, a network of those who bore witness. You slide your fingers along the spines. Some are dated, some aren't. Some have been gnawed at by rats. Others are perfectly preserved. A few are locked. One is sealed with wax. You feel drawn to that one, pick it up, and realize the seal is unbroken. That means no one ever opened it. And something about that scares you more than all the rest. You leave it on the shelf. You know better than to open unread curses. You've learned that much. You take out your phone again. The draft is now titled The Scroll Keeper's Testament. You didn't name it, but you also don't deny it. You scroll through what's been written so far. It mirrors what happened, step by step. But the strangest part, the wording. It's in your voice, the way you would tell it aloud. The same blend of sarcasm, self-deprecation, and quiet terror. It's already become a story. And you realize that's how the scroll ensures survival. Not through ink, not through spells, but through narrative. People don't remember rituals or warnings. They remember stories. Historians still argue whether folklore served a spiritual or social function, but many agree on one thing. Tales of the supernatural were rarely about what happened. They were about what could happen, about what shouldn't happen, and most importantly, about what people needed to remember. You turn to leave the library. As you ascend the steps, the air changes again, warmer now, less oppressive, but something nags at you. That sealed notebook. You glance over your shoulder. It's gone. You freeze. It was just there. You step back down slowly, scan the shelves, check the floor. Nothing. Just a faint indentation on the wood where it rested. That's when you hear it. Reading something out loud. But you're not speaking. It's coming from your phone. The draft is now audio. Your phone is playing a recording of your own voice reading from the text you haven't written yet. Not a robotic voice. You listen. And I stood in the doorway of Alton Hollow's last secret, understanding that the curse was never a punishment. It was a preservation, and now it was mine to carry forward. You stop the playback, heart pounding. That sentence, it's not a memory. It's a script from the future. You exit the church and step into the cold morning light. Dawn's just brushing the treetops, gray and reluctant. The forest is still asleep, or maybe just pretending. You walk back to your car, every step ringing with more certainty than the last. You're not just the third, you're the next. The one who turns the curse into a format people trust. A voice that slips under the skin, not as a warning, but as a bedtime story. You slide behind the wheel. The pen is in the cup holder again. How it got there, you don't know. The scroll, still sealed beneath the altar. But the story, that never stays buried. Your GPS lights up again. Only one word: publish. You consider ignoring it. But then you remember the sealed notebook. The one someone never opened. The one that vanished. And the implication is clear. If you don't release the story, it will release itself. You pull onto the road. The horizon is pale now, the sky bloodless. A new day, but not a fresh one. You feel aged, not older, just archived. You whisper aloud, "So I just tell it, that's all?" No one answers, but your phone screen blinks once. The draft scrolls automatically, revealing the next line. "Yes, but tell it right." And you understand. The scroll doesn't just want to survive. It wants to be understood. Not as myth, not as superstition, as history. The cursed kind, the kind no one dares include in textbooks, but everyone remembers in whispers. You pass another sign. This one doesn't say Alton Hollow. It says, "Leaving witness zone. Drive carefully." You laugh softly, out of nerves, out of disbelief, out of everything. It's already begun, hasn't it? You're narrating it in your head. Framing it like an episode, like you're telling it to someone across a campfire or on a late-night video stream. The structure is already there, and that's how the scroll wins. Through framing, through the comfort of familiar formats. You can wrap horror in history. You can lace terror with trivia, as long as someone listens, and someone always does. You exhale slowly, then press record and start with, "Hey guys, tonight we read something we were never meant to find."
Certainly. Here is Section 13, exactly as you provided, with no changes whatsoever. Section 13, your voice drifts into the stillness like smoke. Not just a voice now, a ritual, a summoning. You sit behind the wheel with your phone propped against the dash, its red recording dot glowing faintly like a candle wick. You don't have a script. Not really. Just memory and instinct, but the words come effortlessly. Not because you practiced them, because it feels like they've been waiting. Your voice is calm, steady, not forced, and that's what makes it more chilling. You recount the story, step by step, from the chapel and the scroll to Maeve to the whisper in the woods. You mention the spiral without hesitation. You talk about the third, the voice in your head, the flame that didn't burn. You even joke a little because that's part of the formula, right? Got to keep the audience comfortable while you lead them into the dark. But the whole time, a question claws at the edge of your mind. Are you telling this story, or is it telling itself? You finish the draft around 4:12 a.m. Upload it as a private file, just for now. You'll release it when you're sure it won't tear something open. But of course, you're not really in control anymore, are you? The next morning, you wake up in your apartment. You don't even remember driving home. Your shoes are still muddy. There are spiral doodles on a napkin near your sink. Your journal is open to a page titled Episode Notes, though you don't remember writing them. And your phone? Your phone is different. The file is no longer private. It's been published. Thousands of views already. Comments rolling in. Some say it's best episode yet. Others say they felt something strange while listening. Pressure in their ears, a flicker in the lights, their pets refusing to enter the room. And then one comment catches your eye, from a user with no avatar, no name, just a single character as their handle. It reads, "Fourth remembers too." You freeze, your breath shortens, your hands begin to tremble, not in fear, but in realization. The cycle has continued. You were the third. Now there's a fourth. You try to shrug it off, but your eyes scan the thread again and again. New comments begin popping up, each one eerily familiar. Phrases from the scroll, descriptions of the church, the spiral, the mirror figure in the woods, they're all sharing your experience, but you never told them that much, which means they're not just listeners, they're participants. You open your email, a new message sits at the top of the inbox. No sender, no subject, just an attachment, witnesslist.docx. You click, it opens slowly. Inside, rows and rows of names. Some you recognize from the scroll in the woods, others are usernames from your channel. Listeners, commenters, people who heard the story and, whether they knew it or not, answered the call. Each name is time-stamped. Each timestamp follows the exact moment they reached the 12:03 mark in your episode. That's when the spiral appears. You didn't upload a spiral graphic, but they all describe seeing one. Faint, glitching, for half a second. And after that, they started dreaming. Writing, hearing whispers. The curse didn't need the scroll anymore. It has you, it has your voice, and now it's bleeding through the screen, pixel by pixel, whisper by whisper, embedding itself in the gaps between words. There's a term used in fringe medieval manuscripts, scriptum infestum, the infected writing. Historians still argue whether it was metaphor or genuine belief, that certain texts weren't cursed by what they said, but by the act of repeating them. If you recite an infected phrase, your mind becomes porous. Your thoughts no longer belong entirely to you. You've created the modern version, a spoken vector. Your words, casually delivered with gentle pacing and ASMR hush, have become an open gate. And now you realize something far worse than you being cursed. You've passed it on. You go back to the comments, scroll down, and there's another from, "You told it right." Just those 4 words. But they land like a hand on your chest, because there's no comfort in that praise, only confirmation. The scroll doesn't want fame, it wants expansion, and you've given it a network, a platform, an audience who listens with their eyes closed and defenses down. You shut the laptop, walk to the bathroom, splash water on your face, stare into the mirror, and for a second, just a blink, your reflection smiles after you do. You stagger back, look again. It's you. Only, it's wearing the wrong expression. Too calm, too certain, too complete. You know what's coming next. If you keep going, if you keep telling this story, if you let it root deeper, it's going to change you. But you also know, if you stop now, it will find someone else, and you'll become the observer. Powerless, watching from behind the glass. You sit on your bed, hands still shaking, open your laptop again, and begin the next outline. The title, What Happens When You Hear the Spiral? Because this isn't just one story anymore, it's a series. Section 14. The episode launches quietly at first. No teaser, no hype, just the upload and a familiar thumbnail, faded parchment, dim candlelight, a crude spiral sketched into the background. No explanation, no text. Within hours, the views spike. Tens of thousands, then hundreds. The comments come quickly. Most are typical at first. "This gave me chills. Your voice is so relaxing. Why does this feel real?" But then they begin to shift, like a pattern forming beneath static. Someone writes, "I fell asleep listening and woke up standing at my front door." Another says, "My phone lit up at 3:33 a.m. It started playing on its own." And a third, "Why do I remember a chapel? I've never been in one." You scroll through the messages, your chest tightening. It's not just you anymore. The spiral is growing. But of course, that was the point, wasn't it? You'd hoped naively that maybe telling the story would break the cycle, that naming the curse would disarm it. But you see the truth now. Naming it is how it survives. Every comment, every rewatch, every listener falling asleep to your voice, they're not witnesses, they're hosts. And the spiral, it's the key that opens them. You turn off the screen, try to breathe. But the spiral isn't only online now, it's in your dreams. It starts with simple things, spirals in clouds, curls of smoke, the swirl of coffee in a mug, but then the dreams deepen. You're back in the forest, the chapel, the underground library, only now there are new scrolls. They have your handwriting, and every time you dream, there's another one added. In the last dream, you see Maeve, only she's no longer bound to the hospice bed. She's standing in the woods, her eyes black but calm, her hand extended, not in warning, in welcome. "Come back," she says. They're ready to hear the rest. And behind her, figures. Hundreds, all facing you, all silent, each holding a scroll, each bearing a spiral burned into their palms. You wake up drenched in sweat, heart rattling like loose glass. And on your nightstand, where there should be nothing, is your phone, open to your draft folder. Only it's not a draft anymore. It's a completed manuscript. The Witness Archive Vol. 1, 15 chapters, 15 voices. Each one a first-person account you didn't write. You skim them. They're terrifying, beautiful. Some sound like yours, others like strangers. One is in Latin, another in medieval Welsh, but all of them begin the same way. I didn't mean to read it out loud. and all of them end the same. I am the third. I remember. You try to delete the file. You can't. It reappears 5 seconds later, and a new document appears beneath it. Vol 2 in progress. Your cursor is already blinking on the next line. You want to laugh, because of course, it's not done. You told the story right, now you're its narrator. But somewhere inside, beneath the exhaustion and fear, something else is blooming. Curiosity. If these stories are real, if the spiral truly echoes across centuries, what was the first story? Who started it? You begin digging. Historical records, obscure texts, secret forums, audio files buried in forgotten RSS feeds. Old sermons, whispered warnings carved into stone, and in a dusty, water-damaged PDF scanned from a private collection at Oxford, you find it. A single line, translated from an extinct dialect of Old Breton. He who draws the eye into itself speaks the first spiral. There is no date, no author, but in the margins, scrawled in red pen, scrolls did not begin with paper, they began with voice. Your breath catches. That's it. That's the origin. Not a scribe, not a monk, a speaker. And with each listener, the voice grew stronger, not because it was evil, but because it was remembered. The spiral is not a curse. It's a feedback loop. Tell the story. Someone listens. They remember, and they pass it on. It doesn't want destruction. It wants amplification. You realize your role now isn't to stop it. It's to shape it, to hold the flood, to guide the spiral so it doesn't consume everything. It's already infected formats, text, audio, symbols. But the last frontier? Dream, because that's where it's headed next. In your next sleep, the figures no longer stand silently. They speak, together, in one voice. Write it down so they will dream in order. And you nod, because you've always known this wasn't just your story. You're just one turn of the spiral.
Section 15. Your fingers hover over the keyboard in the dark. The screen glows gently, casting soft shadows on your walls. Outside, the world has gone quiet. Not the comforting silence of night, but a watchful one. The kind of silence that waits for you to say the wrong thing. But still, you type. Each word feels like a needle threading a deeper connection. The spiral no longer exists only on paper or in sound. You feel it behind your thoughts, coiling inward. A presence in the shape of an idea. You've accepted the role. You're not just a victim of the scroll's legacy. You're a curator. The comments under your latest video have become strange. Less like reactions, more like echoes. I heard these words in a dream weeks ago. My kid drew the spiral before watching this. It's not a story, it's a memory I forgot I had. You try to reply, to anchor yourself in normalcy, but every response you type feels like another verse in a scripture you're no longer fully writing. You hit send and the replies come faster, as if they knew what you'd say before you did. You shut your laptop and glance at the time. Amen. Again, every night, like a clock wound by something ancient and unseen, your life resets to this hour, the witching time, the sacred moment, the spiral's pulse point. You try to sleep, but your dreams are no longer dreams. They're broadcasts, spoken not to you, but through you. Maeve returns each night now, sometimes in the forest, sometimes in your kitchen. She never ages, never changes, just stands there and watches. Her eyes glow faintly, and you realize that what you took for kindness might have always been something else. Duty. She was the narrator before you, and now she's passing the pen. The scroll didn't want to trap you. It wanted to retire her and promote you. Historians still argue whether medieval curses were ever truly active magic or just folklore given enough belief to gain a kind of psychic gravity. But what they often fail to consider is the medium. In the Middle Ages, that medium was parchment, pigment, voice. Today, it's you, your microphone, your channel, your voice, calm and soothing, guiding others deeper into the spiral, your bedtime history. Audience always loved how you made dark topics feel cozy, digestible, safe. But now, you wonder, was that the point all along? To turn horror into comfort, to lull people past the edge of fear into submission. You look down at your arm. The spiral mark has returned. Only now it's made of tiny letters, thousands of them. You lean in, their names, subscribers, each one drawn into the pattern, each one another whisper in the chain. You try to tell yourself this is just imagination, a trick of exhaustion, a guilty conscience inflated by the paranormal aesthetic you've built. But the draft is open again, not the script you just finished, a new one. And at the top, a line you didn't type. Season 2 begins here. Your chair creaks, not because you moved, because something behind you did. You don't turn around. You just whisper, "Who's the fourth?" And a voice, your voice, but not from your throat, answers, "They already told it wrong." Then silence. You write all night. The next video uploads itself. The next 100 comments are already waiting. The spiral turns again. And as you watch the views tick upward, one at a time, a strange calm settles into your bones. This was never your story. It was theirs. You just happened to be the one telling it right. And perhaps that's all any curse ever really wants. Not revenge, not death, just to be understood. Wind down. And now as our story closes, let's ease the spiral into stillness. You take a breath, slow, gentle, feeling your body sink into the mattress or the quiet seat where you sit. The voice fades, softening like candlelight behind fogged glass. Whatever weight this story carried, it can rest for now. The scroll has been passed. The spiral has turned. And in this moment, there is nothing left for you to carry. Let the air in your room settle, undisturbed. Let your eyes drift heavy like windows closing for the night. The tale lingers, yes, but not to haunt. It lingers to remind you that stories like dreams are bridges. And sometimes the best thing we can do is walk them without fear. You don't need to remember every word, every whisper, every line in the scroll. The spiral will hold it for you. All you need to do is rest. Let go of the echo. Let go of the story. And when sleep comes, let it come gently. Like a soft voice in the dark, asking nothing from you but to listen. You've been a witness. Now you may be still. Sweet dreams.